just as you earlier defined what you do and what your role in the bigger picture is, how would you define the role of a brand in today's landscape?
I think it's about cultivating your community and building a really strong affinity that's authentic. I mean, there are so many choices a brand can make that speaks to who they are and what they value, whether it's the type of stores that they sell to, how they treat off-price reduction, how they deal craft and slow fashion versus fast fashion, um, the partnerships that they choose to make, whether it's partnerships with influencers, which we do very little of, to partnerships with brand collaborations. I think every choice that you make helps define a little bit more about the brand experience and the ecosystem that you want to create around that brand. I'd say Ulla Johnson as a brand and as a human has done like a very exceptional job of being super consistent in what is and what is not the brand. Because what is not the brand is as important as what is the brand, which I think is where some mistakes start to happen.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it's easier to identify what to avoid versus what to do.
Yeah,
Interesting.
very, very much so.
So would you say community building is the biggest foundational principle that you use for your decision making when trying to understand what a brand is and how that definition evolves over time? Because again, I think that most people get very overwhelmed by the sheer complexity involved in this industry and what it takes to not only start a brand but grow a brand. So when you're coming across, problems or strategies that can get very complex, what foundational principles do you always use to guide your decision making other than, your personal awareness of your own management and leadership style?
Yeah, I mean, there's always this question, and I think which a lot of leaders and many brands would say is like, does this feel on brand? And sometimes it's okay to take a risk because your brand can be evolving, it can be growing next generation, or it could be just growing overseas, which may be a similar community but is spoken to in a different way. So, I mean, we look at, at the heart of what we do, we design and create a product. So design feeling is something on brand for design, has a very organic filter in our company because it is very driven by Ulla, and a lot of the leadership, who really wears and are passionate and feel like they know the customer journey, that our customer takes to get to us as well. I think we look a lot, even in recent agreements, on with producers or with licensors, how do they treat their product from a sourcing perspective, and certainly sustainability, but not exclusively in the environmentally sustainable, which we can talk about, which we have lots of ways that we impact that. But um, how are how are they dealing with their products even at the end use? Like the idea that there are companies that burn excess fabric, it's still, I've been working for 30 years, it still shocks me. So those are things that would never be on brands. We work hard on social impact, work really closely on craft preservation and celebration, which is inherent in the brands and has been inherent, with Ulla for a long time. There's a nomadic spirit to the brand. So there are things that definitely feel on brands and choices of hospitality partnerships, fragrance or cosmetic partnerships. We're looking at some new active categories, and it's looking to see if the brands have quality, craft, care about social impact, are not excessive in how they're producing and treating their supply chain. I'd say are a lot of the questions we ask ourselves when making those choices.
Right. So the question that has been asked for the decades, which is this on brand or is it not on brand? But the tricky part is understanding at which period of time it's important to redefine what the brand means, and at other periods of time, understanding and being disciplined with the brand has always been. So it's a mixture
Sure, and
between. adapting and the adaptation yet discipline.
Yeah, because you also, even within a consistent visual or design vocabulary, there's opportunity to evolve. I mean, your customer wants to see you evolve. They can't have the same exact thing time over time. And, we're not a house that changes creative directors every 4 years or when contracts end. So there's certainly consistency. And just as the brand matures and our customer matures with us, the brand has to evolve. And there are lots of ways to do low risk. I mean, certainly when you work with direct to consumer, so we have our own e-commerce and we have 3 freestanding stores, it gives us a lot of opportunity to incubate new ideas and test how our most loyal and our most passionate customers respond. Because if you're shopping on ullajohnson.com or you're taking a trip to one of our destination spots, because all of our 3 stores are not necessarily, even if they're New York and LA, they're not necessarily on pedestrian shopping areas, their destination. These are our biggest fans. So testing out how they feel about new product categories, new pricing strategies is the best way that we can, on a low risk way, try and expand in a really holistic way. And that's what we do quite often.
Right. So have the freedom to test out. Just make sure that those tests are not catastrophic, and the potential for reward is very high, and the potential for risk or damage is very low.